Right, we're live. Blockmates DeFi Happy Hour podcast, and it's the first of our trader series, which me and Jedi are going to be taking through some of our favorite traders, investors on CT and further beyond. So today we've got Aperture from Deus Ex DAO, and don't expect anything professional from this. Just like everything we do, it's a bit all disjointed and a bit all over the place, but we'll get through it. So Aperture, welcome.
Thank you for having me here. I'm glad to talk to you once more now on your podcast.
Yeah, we've basically just carbon copied what you showed us. we've forked your whole platform effectively.
Yeah, it felt familiar, really familiar.
No, it's good to continue our kind of conversation and collaborative work as well. But we've also got Jedi here. I'm sure he can chime in.
Hey, Aperture. Nice to have you with us, and it's also nice to obviously be using this platform that you so eloquently introduced us to a couple of weeks ago. Pretty seamless, easy to use, and yeah, I mean, just jump right in, and we're hoping that this is, I think this is the second one. Grant, is this the second one that we've done? You did one with Cairo last week. There've been a couple, but I think we've kind of decided that we're going to formalize this thing and possibly do 2 a week. And Aperture, you're one of our guinea pigs, so thanks for stepping in. And just to kick it right off, give us an introduction, who you are, and we'll get into kind of like the meat of it later on. But yeah, tell us about yourself, if you feel like telling us where you're from and what's motivated you to be in the space.
Yeah, so I became active in this space. I think end 2017, or actually no, for sure that was end 2017 in the magical bull run. I came in really as a retail, and I traded my way through a bear market. I started learning trading through a bear market and developed my skills. I was working as a data analyst at the time, several jobs in that section, and I felt analyzing charts came quite natural to me. I didn't make big profits in the bear market. I think the biggest achievement was keeping my money, like giving it back to the market after making some profits, but always staying alive. And it sharpened my skills in chart reading, risk management, and knowing what I want to develop as strategies in the market. But it also built my network. And in the last, I'm not sure how long, maybe 2 years, I worked together with some great analysts in Burp Nest, produced a lot of content with them, built a platform with them to bring some education to people like me when I started in 2017, and there wasn't much content available then. So I want to produce that and bring that to bigger audience. And after that, the ball kept rolling. I got a network. I connected with a lot of people in the space, great traders, great investors, just good people with good skills. And then I ended up in the Deus Ex DAO, which is an investment syndicate, but also an advisory organization for projects which we can help with tokenomics or marketing. Yeah, but I can go into deep on that a little bit later. So this is the short introduction.
Lovely. You touched on the bird nest there. So from my understanding, your time there's finished. And what was that? And how do you think that's kind of led you to where you are now in this space?
I think it was a really important part of what I am currently, because I joined the Burp Nest when I felt I wasn't really ready, but but it made me like look at all my skills and sharpen those skills well. So when I came on, there was like a huge selection round. I really pushed every skill I had. Like I programmed, I had ideas on marketing, I provided technical analysis and setups, and eventually with a few other sharp minds, I became a team member. And the great thing is that you suddenly get an audience. So people are looking at you, and you have to word stuff better. I think that's one of the best things about education. You have to word your knowledge better. You have to explain it to other people in multiple ways. So you have to be also very critical of what you think and what you say. So you get a deeper understanding of doing that. So I think that's what helped me even push my own trading further. But it's also great because people look at you, and also not only members but also other like bigger traders in the space or investors in the space, and then they start to take you more seriously because you produce that content on your individual name, but also under that banner. And I think network in crypto is everything. So you can leverage also the network from others inside. But most importantly, you're working closely together with a big team that has a similar goal. And that way you can amplify those skills, or learn from somebody who has a skill that you don't possess. And the only thing you need is some time to do that, and some energy to put into that. So that's great from an investment perspective. You put in time, energy, skills, and you grow together. And that's what I've been really proud of when I left. That you can look back and look at all the content you made, all the products you build, the members you hopefully helped, and see that it was a success.
Yeah, massively. I couldn't agree more with what you said about when you put your thoughts onto the page, or when you're actually typing them up, you actually check your own bias and check your own understanding of something, because you're like, shit, is this actually, what I'm typing up now, is that true? Is that correct? And from doing this, I was speaking to one of the marketing guys who works with Expo today, and he was saying because we brought him on from like a traditional job. He used to work with one of the biggest, the fastest growing brewing company in the UK, and he was just saying, how can I get up to speed? And like, how have you managed to take on all this information in such a short space of time? And I've just said, when you write and put your ideas onto the page, it actually helps you understand something to like a first principles level, because you have to know, because 9 times out of 10, someone's going to pull up and say, I didn't really understand this. Can you explain it a little bit more? And you actually have to understand it to such a deep level that you do fundamentally understand what you're actually talking about when you do put it in the page. So if anyone's actually listening and wants to use that, they don't have to release the content. They can just put it down and just write their thoughts down. I know Raymond, one of our good friends, Jedi, he's recently been putting stuff out, but he said just from writing his thoughts down, writing his ideas and thesis down, it's just helping him massively. So agree with what you've just said there, 100%.
Yeah, and I think it also helps, after you've done maybe some write-ups or research on projects. That's when you can start create some templates. For example, what I did mostly with trading strategies or market scanning is, first I started to research a lot, like tap into experience from all these other traders. And funny thing was, last week I came across some of these Excel sheets I had, which I now look at like, oh, that's insane. I already know all of this. It was structured, categorized, and everything. So I started researching traders first, but then you get to see similarities, for example, between strategies. Or I can imagine that's also working for projects and fundamental research. And when you have those templates in mind after some initial experience, you can use that to create your own research framework. Simply structure that and just follow that for a project, which reduces time, and that way you can scan through projects much faster. And you'll probably also get to some red flags or stuff you don't want to see. And I think cutting out information early on, like if you look at a project and you see 2 of these red flags and you just click it away, next project, is really valuable eventually. So I think it's good to start with some write-ups, but eventually try to structure it a little bit, I think, because that would work. And like lots of the projects have a similar timeline in crypto, or a similar product proposition. So you can categorize that and make it much easier for you to do some research. Just fill in the questions you need to know and hop on to the next one.
Yeah, nice. I like that.
So I think what's, in terms of your approach, the one thing that's become very clear to me, and we obviously, we joked about this in Discord a couple of weeks ago, and it's kind of like the one thing that I really enjoy about your approach is that you're a no bullshitter. You look at the facts. You very much, you're empirically based in terms of your approach to the market, and rightfully so. I think at the end of the day, it's kind of like that almost mathematical, as I refer to it, samurai approach by cutting through the bullshit. I want to get into the detail of that in terms of how do you generally approach a trade versus an investment. Do you approach them in a similar way, or do you look at them as two different approaches with 2 different strategies?
Well, let's start with cutting through the bullshit, and then I'll answer the question. I love to be critical of my own research, and I think that's my main skill. So I'm glad others see that too. It already happened when I was at university. I remember writing some academic research papers, and mostly when you have these structures of academic research, at the end there is some kind of conclusion and you reflect on your research. And I often got like the comments like, you did a good research report, but in the end you totally broke down and you left nothing intact from your findings, because you found all these negative aspects to it. So I knew it was a skill. I sometimes had to tone it down for data analysis and reporting. But funny thing is, in crypto, I can fully utilize that. So to start with, I mostly traded and learned through a bear market. So I distrust like every project there is and every chart there is and every altcoin there is. I think a bear market is the best market to start learning trading, because technicals don't exist. It's just liquidity exiting the market, people taking profit, and you have to protect yourself from that. So any news event that causes a bump is one you could sell into. But definitely not buy into, because then you're buying the bags that others are dumping. So I think that's what made me really critical, because I realized that these technicals can exist, and these technicals can definitely exist for a longer time, but a project has to survive, or a team has to survive for that to come to fruition. The problem is that there is an uncertainty factor in that. And you might never really know which team that is unless you have very specific information about that team. So in general, I treat every coin the same as some kind of project that isn't going to make it, because this space is very experimental. Most of this stuff won't make it or won't be around in the next 2 or 3 years. or the chart will be down just 90% and doesn't recover. So with that in mind, I like to do some trend trading, or look for charts that have bottomed and are in some accumulation zone. So I think the combination of technical analysis and fundamental analysis is actually the best one to use, where the fundamentals create the narrative. They create maybe holders, the people that don't watch the chart. They create the marketing, the hype, which is really important, because I think hype and marketing around the project is in good conditions similar to trends. So if there is a lot of hype, you can see that in the chart, and it will still respect some technicals. So I think the most perfect charts I like, especially for my investment projects, are the ones that are in some accumulation range after listing, or after a bigger move. I think Liquid Driver from the last few weeks was a super good example of that. Didn't play that, but I saw the chart and I was like, this is indeed one of the charts I would have played, where you can see that there is some sideways price action, it's ranging, and then gets some momentum. And then you have to look at these fundamentals, some news, some hype, and see what's happening. Are there some fundamental aspects to this? Is there some news? Did the team keep developing regardless of price action? Do they keep building? Do they keep delivering? And that's I think the best thing to have. Fundamental aspects, but you can see it in the chart. So I definitely have some breakout strategies. I wouldn't say that. I think it's more of an early momentum strategy. And I think that's where my edge is. I can really spot momentum early. And I like it when there is a fundamental factor. And I think what I eventually also learned is I can see where that momentum changes. And even if there is like all these news events, bullish news, team delivering a new feature, I don't give a shit, because the momentum is gone, or just the setup isn't there. I think that's hopefully the answer.
So what's really interesting about, just for the record, for everyone that's listening, we did plan this. There've been no lists have gone out. I mean, this is we're free flowing here, So what's funny about what you said, Aperture, is that Grant and I actually we had a meeting this morning. Nothing formal or complicated. Don't worry, we don't do that chat. But we discussed a number of protocols and coins, and one of them was Liquid Driver. And I've been bullish on Liquid Driver even before did that parabolic move. And I think the fundamentals around the protocol and what it is that they're offering it's solid, And one of the things that we discussed is it's a shame that it's not multi ecosystem, because it's kind of like they really do have something quite solid there. And we then spoke about how this accumulation was in process, and obviously you brought it up. I mean, I've posted about it a number of times on Twitter, and I really think that Liquid Driver is very much almost like my indicator per se, in terms of this whole trend that you described, accumulation and then this upward movement around the news. The news is definitely, I think Grant mentioned that there's an equivalent to a version 2. I haven't had a chance to get into the detail of that, but that's pretty much what it is that you're outlining. It's the perfect story. And I think there's a number of these kind of protocols that are currently undergoing this kind of this trend. We've had obviously quite a brutal market, particularly over the last 4 months, and we're getting a lot of accumulation with a lot of decent protocols, which is leading me on to my next question, and that is that what are your favorites at the moment that you can think of that you are not necessarily invested in? I mean, absolutely you can try and pump your own bags on our show, but I mean, even stuff that you haven't entered, I mean, is there anything out there that you really like that you're keeping an eye on, maybe some alpha for the listeners and for us, of course?
Let me grab my my watch list. I'm not sure if I stated this on Twitter, but I'm closely watching the chart for Luxo, but also know a little bit about the fundamentals behind it. So I think the chart is actually like more of a 4-hour trending strategy that it shows. Maybe I could show this. Can I share my screen?
Go for it. Yeah, I was just going to suggest actually we bring some of those up. Can you share it? Can you share it, Joran?
Yeah, it is hopefully available now.
There we go.
So what I often like to do is put in some moving averages. So that's my standard template. But what I saw is one of my favorite high time frame retraces happening towards the 0.786 Fibonacci, drawn from the bottom to the top. And right now, like as I said, it's in some form of accumulation. It's holding this low. It's holding around this zone. You could draw some kind of triangle for the market structure. And of course, it could go easily, reject here and dump down and fully retrace. But this is why I'm in these market conditions a little bit careful. I don't do that much bets, so this is actually one of the worst moments to ask me what are your bigger convictions, because I don't have that much. Of course, there are some projects I'm longer term invested in, but I think this one is more representative of what I actually do. So I was looking at these the fundamentals of the projects already before. I think maybe before here, but as every parabolic move, it comes down in crypto eventually, and it's now consolidating. Maybe remove these moving averages so you can see the structure a little bit better. And basically my guess is that breakout, and I think that's also where my edge is, that often I can take positions just before a breakout happens, because I see that underlying momentum, and that way I often can take profit before actually on the first breakout, which de-risks the position a little bit. But simply said, we have a 4-hour uptrend here. Price is moving past these moving averages, tapped nicely into the 100 moving average. And of course, there was some noise here before, but this isn't really trending. These are quite volatile moves. So this feels a bit more real. And if the market, like that's the thing, it really depends on the market. If Bitcoin or Ethereum start running here, altcoins that have good fundamentals will probably outperform. And that's also the thesis here. I think I saw Luxo developing all kinds of test nets, and they're actively developing, searching for team members, talking at like festivals or congresses. So that's, I think, why this team is still active and delivering. And what I like, it's if I look at the website, I can show you a little bit better, is that they have something like universal public profiles. I think identity on a blockchain can be much more important. I also think privacy, like on the other hand, privacy can be much more important on a blockchain. So I have like two theses that there will become much more hype around identity on a blockchain, whether it's hiding that or verifying that, because that's really important for getting trust. Like having a profile, for example, gives you a reputation you can use online, gives you access. And of course, you can use NFTs to that, but an NFT, for example, is way too static. If you can build a profile with some data attached, that will give you much more to verify, for example. And they did it with certificates. You can build currencies on that. So I think that's why it's interesting, because it fits a little bit one of my narratives about identification and how it will work in the future in crypto. But that's the short explanation.
Are they another network that I think I vaguely remember trading it at some point, but I couldn't remember what they actually did. Are they just another layer one, or?
No, I think what I saw just on the website that they have like version 16 of their testnet, so it's not really released. It's just a token you can trade. I think, for example, on KuCoin, but probably it's also ERC20. I'm not sure about that actually, but so it's still in development, and that's also what I like. I'm always like sell the news. I have that sell the news mentality. You have to get in pre-hype, because pre-hype is that trend in the chart. And if you can grab that by looking at what's happening under the hood, going through announcements, seeing if the team's delivering, taking a look at these Medium articles they're putting out or their Twitter, you can maybe catch that hype early on. And that's like the first thesis, like, okay, this can catch hype. And from there, what you can do is look at the chart and see if the chart is representing that hype. So there is that narrative, and then as I showed you, there is that 4-hour trend, there is that consolidation. The pattern is, in my opinion, not really important, but it is a compression of volatility there, and it probably will break out one side or another, and that's the bet. Like, if it breaks out to the upside, and there are reasons to think of that, market conditions, maybe news, I can position myself for that. And I think the momentum currently is pointing to some upside on a 4-hour. But if that momentum is gone, I'm also willing to cut directly, even if it didn't break out of that structure yet. So it's quite specific what I want to see. But that's why you have a watch list.
Yeah. That's why you carve your own niche and carve your own formula. And that's why kind of copy trading doesn't work. Because if someone's copy trading and they're waiting for a buy and sell signal, they're never ever in a million years going to understand why that person's bought that at that point, or why they've sold at that point. You just need to carve your own kind of formula, as I just said.
Yeah, and and in most cases, copy trading won't work, especially not what we see on Twitter, on Discourse today. That absolutely doesn't work, except if the trader has a structured, verified strategy. Of course, can word that strategy well, and you can verify, for example, these results. So then it might be fine. But I think in a lot of cases, it won't be a solution. It won't be a solution for skill and understanding, because I think copy trading in most cases won't work because people just don't have risk management. And that's what I have seen often, that when somebody shares a chart, people just put in like 50% of their capital at risk or in a leverage trade. There's one shakeout and they lose it all, and coming back from that is really, really hard. So I think it all comes down to mostly risk management, and that's why most fuck up copy trading. But you only understand risk management when you start trading yourself, and then the question is, why aren't you building your own strategies? So I think copy trading could also work. Like for example, I look at a lot of traders and discuss with a lot of traders just to know what they're looking at, what they're seeing. Maybe they can act as a market scanner for you because they are looking at some charts you aren't at, and then you put on your own trading strategies. I just have these templates in TradingView, and then I execute them. So for example, I know it might be a trade, but if there isn't that trigger, I'm not going in.
Oh, I get that. So what about copy investing, or is it the same thing, just kicking the can further down the road?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I think it's even worse in some cases where we now have like farming as a service, which is a different flavor, but in essence, I think you are still trusting somebody else with your funds. And the funny thing is that we talked about this like for before 2021, like never send somebody your money to trade with, and then suddenly platforms are putting out tokens, and suddenly everybody throws money in. And but there is like a fine line with that, of course. In DeFi, especially like staking platforms with optimization strategies, I think that's something different, because you can, if you can do that, you can verify the contracts or trust other parties did that. And these strategies are often more well defined. So that's the thing. Like if you know the track record, or if you understand the strategy, then it's probably fine. But the problem is not understanding the strategy that's below the mechanism, or in the fund, or in the project.
Yeah, because what I think we've recently seen, and I think Jedi will speak to this a lot, is you had the kind of Tetranode army that were just literally buying into anything that he said he was going to put his name to. That's all well and good in a bull market, but the last three projects haven't exactly done well.
Oh, exactly, and that's the thing. If the liquidity isn't there, the market cycle isn't there, you can do that, but it probably won't end up with a profit. And I think that's the main problem. That's I think a pattern I see every time. Like there is a new star on the rise on crypto Twitter or whatever platform who's doing really, really well. And then he gets traction, and then people start copy trading it and then get hurt. Two reasons for that. Probably because somebody already has made it on the first project and is less incentivized to do something well. Somebody gets more offers from the space, or starts to decide to build a project on their own without any experience or much experience, which also ruins the profits or sustainability of the project. But also important is that these people get a lot of hype because of the market momentum, the market conditions. So if somebody did really well in the last year, a lot of people did really well in the last year because there were projects. So there is a big survivorship bias in that. You only see the winners and them flashing it, and they get traction, and people amplify that. And eventually, when the market turns and they keep putting out projects, people keep following them, but that's when they have the biggest following and the most eyes on them. So at the moment they're most likely to fail, they have the most traction, and that's actually the interesting part. So I think that's something to be aware of. Like if somebody has gotten a lot of traction and a lot of successful projects in the past, it's normally they say it's not a good guideline for future performance. But I think in crypto with these market cycles, it's and you can see like follower accounts or people looking at it. it's actually the inverse. It's a really good guideline to not follow somebody and stay away. You have to dig deep and then find the new hot developers and the new hot projects and the new gem searchers in crypto.
So, what I find really interesting, and Grant, you obviously raised kind of my one of my bugbears around, obviously, this incredible success that Tetranode cultivated, and there's a couple of others, but I think the Tetranode one is a very good example of, the success of previous projects almost becoming almost like a prerequisite for success. It's kind of like it's like we were successful with Dopex, and therefore everything that we're going to do after this is going to be successful. And to the extent that we'll make it successful regardless of what it takes. And obviously this bear market narrative kicks in, and like I call bear markets spring low tides. As a surfer, spring low tide can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing. And the one thing that it is that it exposes everything. And that's what happened. The reef was exposed, and it was jagged and it was nasty, and there was no liquidity, like you've so eloquently stated. And the guys that got in early essentially dumped. That's what they did. And it was like this reoccurring behavior that didn't just last for a few days. It lasted for weeks and possibly even months. I don't think Vesta's recovered, and I think Jones is trying its best, but there was just too much momentum with all the favors that were being paid. And maybe I'm incorrect. Maybe that's just kind of my assumption that isn't correct. I don't have the evidence to support this besides the price action and my very close observation of wallets that were interacting with the buyers and the sells at the time. And here we're sitting with a scenario where another case in point is obviously like someone like Danny, and the success that he afforded not only to himself but to his teams, and also to a large number of community members, myself included, that benefited from a very successful run. Time was amazing. I mean, I think all of us here benefited from time, and made some really good money out of the whole thing. But unfortunately, almost like the success of, what is the right terminology here? It's almost like there was just too much good success. And then I don't know if that actually even makes sense, but it was like they just essentially just like the car was driving so bloody fast that it eventually, the only way to stop it was that it needed to hit a brick wall. And it's actually really sad, which leads me on to my next question. And that is that, do you believe that being doxxed is actually better than remaining anonymous, and more importantly, remaining anonymous as a group as opposed to an individual? And I think another case in point to that is Andre Cronje, who landed up, I don't know what the real story is there, but I have a feeling he left because there was just too much fuckery going on, not only with Danny and everything, but I think it just got all too much for him. And it's kind of like, well, I need to retreat. And, he's now gone, in inverted commas. And the question is ultimately, is it better to remain anonymous? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'll come back to the staying anonymous question and anonymous actors in the space a little bit later, but I want to come back at what you mentioned, for example, with time and blaming these people. Like, personally, I think it's typical of a bull market. Everybody celebrates, and in the bear market, they're seeking for
let's blame someone.
Yeah, it's bad actors, but it's well, and it's easy for the public. I think that's in most of the excuses, the public just put in money, didn't understand the market, and are looking for excuses. I think it's the worst kind of revenge trading. Because, for example, I think it was time, I'm not sure about the exact valuations, but if you looked at how much time was backed by, and you looked at how much it was worth. It was, I think, multiples of that. Like if you could read the docs or look at this document, you were paying like 10 times as much for what it was actually worth. And that's crypto. This market is super liquid, and that's hype. You know, when it gets attention, people throw money in because it's going up and it's going up, and it keeps going up until the last sucker is buying it. But I'm absolutely sure that last sucker is that buys it doesn't know what the real valuation is of that project. So they can blame, of course, the project founders, because the project founder is, of course, talking about all the good stuff they're going to do, but like they're buying it. You know, you're responsible for your own money and evaluating the project. And you can blame that founder that he was talking about price, which is, of course, one of the biggest red flags, but also delivering on products, which he can probably still do in a bear market in most cases. But like the public pushed up all that, you know, the valuation of that project while it just wasn't there. So like, who's really to blame? Like like a lot of times these founders get to blame, or there's some cherry picking sometimes with some influencers that shared some bad calls, but you know, probably they got wrecked too, or they were what you should do as a trader, taking profit when everything was going nuts, while others who don't know how to read a chart, who don't, you just follow blindly without any knowledge, just buy. Like, where is your edge? If you don't know what your edge is in the market, you shouldn't go into a market. But that's the thing about crypto, everybody can join that easily, which is why it is actually an easy market to trade, and actually very predatory market to trade, and that's why people can pull that off. But I think the blaming is really easy coping mechanism in most cases, because if you did your research, if you know a little bit more about it following a trend, you wouldn't get hurt. If you know a little bit more about risk management, you wouldn't have put in that much money. So of course it's bad. We all get hurt sometimes in the market, but some people just do more stupid stuff than others. And if your coping mechanism is blaming others every time, you know, spend that time learning something about the market. See this learning tuition, like that's the mentality you see in a lot of like more traditional trading resources that most fuck up in the first few years, and they call it trading tuition. But in crypto, we turn to anonymous avatars and blame them for our mistakes. Bring in the next sheep for the next bull run, because that's how it always happens, sadly. But that's the reality of a market. Yeah. Anyway, anonymous founders, anonymous people. The problem with all that coping and stuff like that, it's twofold. Of course, if somebody is doxxed, there is that assumption that they are a more honest actor. That's not true. You know, even people or big billionaires who we know the names from, who we think we know, can put out scams. Like, come on, you see these like Floyd Mayweather shilling some shitcoin token because they just paid him. I think that's even worse, because people know him and know who he is. He gets money and a big audience, and that's a bigger red flag. So I'm not sure. That's for example why I like these public profiles a little bit better. I talked earlier on, like, you can have a reputation on chain and build that and verify that, for example, to know that the actor you're working with is a more honest actor instead of just a face you know from TV. So I'm not sure. Of course, I think it's all about having a unique identifier, and the unique identifier people are used to is a face. You know, something to recognize. A name is also quite a unique identifier, especially coupled with the face. But we now have ways to do that otherwise, whether it's a profile picture, whether it's an online identity. And I think that's the funny thing is sometimes there are some deals, like OTC deals. I have sent like multiple monthly salaries to like people I don't even know, like just profile pictures on the internet. And I wouldn't even send that money to close friends. But I can send that because they have an online reputation. And if that comes out, and if they fuck up, they ruin that reputation, which is much more worth than the funds I send. And that's why they don't. So there is some form of trust or social system around that, which makes it good. So I think that's an opinion most people don't consider, that maybe you're following your network, even if you're an anonymous avatar, can prevent those actions as long as there is some kind of unique identifier, whether it's anonymous or your face and your name. And the benefit of staying anonymous, which is also often overlooked, is there are a lot of like attack factors when you have an audience. So there only needs to be one crazy person or smart hacker to find out who you are, know where you live, and social engineer an attack, or just knock on your door with a baseball bat and break in and try to ruin you. So because they assume maybe you have more money than others. Well, maybe you're just working for an honest pay, or they assume you have your bitcoins laying under your mattress at home. It only takes one crazy person to do that. So as always with security, you want to reduce the attack factors. And I think being easily identifiable as a real life person is an attack factor, and you probably can dox me or find me or almost every person in crypto, because you can see me on conferences and networking, also with my real name and stuff like that. But shielding it in some way is valuable. And I like my avatar. I like a lot of people's avatars and who they are online, so I don't really need to know their real names. It even adds complexity because now I have to know their tag or their Discord name and their real name. So you need to know even more about a person.
Yeah, I agree. Let's spend the last 10 minutes about Deus Ex DAO. When you fill everyone in, what your current role is there and what the DAO is actually setting out to achieve.
Yeah. Okay. Let's introduce the DAO. We are an investment advisory. We also give. We are an investment syndicate. We give advisory on marketing, tokenomics, business development, because we are a group of experts from the space, all from different backgrounds, different portfolios, totally different skills, totally different network. But I think that makes it really, really powerful, because I think we just found ourselves having the same mentality. We share the same mentality, and we just want to build something that makes the space better. So while some are talking about running nodes and validators, others are talking about improving marketing for projects and improving that for projects. And of course, we invest in projects too with the group after a big due diligence process with multiple members and multiple opinions, which we sometimes overdo, but I think that's only a good thing. So we can fully trust our own investments, and it's not just something we think gives a good profit. We also like the idea and think it pushes the space further. My role there is being one of the council members, which is the core group who is building the DAO, letting the community engage, finding projects we can help or invest in. And my specialty is a little bit more about marketing, because I think that marketing in crypto absolutely sucks. You spend a few thousand on an influencer. The KPIs are bad. The users are very fluid, because it's mostly about brand recognition, not really about onboarding users and having a sticky user base. Also, no sticky capital, so it's easily flows to the next thing that has 2% more APR. The product marketing fit is often really bad in crypto, and that's what I want to do better. I think there needs to be a bigger standard for that, and marketing sounds often a little bit bad, a little bit chilly, but that's also what I think needs to change. It needs to be back to what marketing was: display of information, getting the user known with your project, educating about a project, for a variety of audiences, like tailored to specific audiences. And we're developing now a framework for that, which I think we can roll out to every project. That's the goal. That's the big goal to have. Yeah, I'll be leading that project, and if any project wants to spar on that, needs help, needs advice, needs to tap into our network, they can reach out to me, or to Deus Ex DAO, through Twitter or through email.
Yeah, I'll leave all your links in the YouTube description as well. So if anyone needs to get in touch, they can just find you there. Is there any recent investments that you guys have took, or?
Well, I think one was really public. I think that was Atlas or Eatless, which was also in a round with a lot of other bigger VCs, and it was mentioned on Cointelegram, I think. Not sure if I can really share the others yet.
Yeah, don't go into it.
But like that's what we like to do. We're going to come up with a overview of the first quarter of this year, and we'll share our investments there, short notes on what we think of that, or why we invested. So I think that's really important if you want to know more.
Yes, but it's nice to see kind of crypto native DAOs spinning up that can provide information and advice on that, instead of just seeing kind of traditional VCs coming in with big dollar signs in front of their eyes.
Yeah, and I think what's changing is like there's a weird imbalance in crypto, that there are a lot of VCs and people willing to throw in money, but there are also lots of projects who are willing to fund, and the valuations are insanely high for just a white paper or just a one-page website, because there is a lot of capital. The funny thing is that sometimes projects have problems raising money, which is like, why? Because there is a lot of money that wants to have access to these sales. So there is always like some kind of mismatch. But what I think is really valuable if you're really an investor is that you want to level up. You want to help the project build. You want to get in with the team. You want to advise them. You want to help them with your network. I think one of the most valuable resources is human capital, finding good people with good skills. Lots of the stuff that's being done in crypto is quite amateuristic in some ways. So finding the right people to develop your project with is important. And of course, there is a absolute shortage of developers. So that's also one tip. If you really want to make it in crypto and you have some programming skills, I think this is the easiest space to to join and also get, I think, a decent pay. But value from VCs or angels is that they can help a project in these resources, developing the product, because a lot of these projects are groups of developers, programmers, but they might not know less about marketing, or they might know less about business development, or the new form of business development, like having a DAO or working decentralized, working cross borders, which is quite new. And I think there are a lot of challenges that VCs can help with, by not providing capital but also time. And I think that might be a good message here. Like, people always talk about investing money in the space, but I think your most valuable asset is investing time, to learn something, to help people out, to build a network. And you just have to spend time, which, if you like what you're doing, is a risk-free investment.
Yeah, awesome. No, I agree. Jedi, is there anything you want to add? I've got one minute.
Yeah, you've got a meeting now with so I'll make it quick. I mean, obviously we're in a very interesting time in the market at the moment, particularly on a macro level, which is obviously kind of like orchestrating everything. Before you leave, Aperture, would you like to give us a small prediction? We won't hold you to it, and I promise you I will not invest my money based on what it is that you say now, so you don't have to worry about that. But I'd really like to get your thoughts, as quickly as possible, what you think is going to happen, whatever time frame you choose, whether it's the next week, next month, or the next 6 months. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it can go up or down, and maybe sideways.
No, man, you're not allowed to say that.
Like, what I assume is more volatility, whether it breaks up or down. That's like really the answer, like up or down. And I'm positioning myself a little bit for some upside, because I just have some gut feeling and I see some momentum to that side. But I'm also willing to flip short and back fully to USD if that fails. So it isn't really a prediction, but yeah, up or down, but especially some volatility. There have been some great projects that have been building, and I would love to see them make it and having some appreciation also in price. But the market needs to get some trust back and some liquidity for that to happen.
Well, I think I personally think that, and I've been kind of like, I've been putting the message across, is that this is the time for us to build. It's a great opportunity to focus on the fundamentals of what we believe in. From a blocmates perspective, from a DAO perspective, it doesn't matter what it is that you're doing. If you're in the space, now's the time to do your research, get your ideas flowing. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. It doesn't matter, as long as those ideas are flowing and you're writing them down and you're putting it out there. I think that's where we need to be focusing on, and not. I'm finding that I'm spending less time watching charts at the moment, because we all know where that's going, and just focusing more on what we can control, and that is building and doing more of this stuff, getting more ideas going. And who knows, maybe in 6 months, 12 months time, things will be better and we will be stronger in the space. So that's what we're working on.
Yeah, bear markets are for preparation, spending time, learning, building, and that's where the profits in bull trends and bull markets are made, whether it's in a month, whether it's in 2 years. But be prepared, sharpen the axe. I think that's what needs to be done.
Awesome. All right, thanks again for your time. Really appreciate it. I'll jump in Discord because I don't want to jump off like this and just leave it hanging. But yeah, thanks both for your time again, and we'll get this posted in the next day or two. But yeah, awesome.
Yes, awesome. Thank you for having me, and another good chat. Have a good day.
Man.
Yeah. Andrew.
Take care,
Thanks a
guys.
lot.
Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.